Hey guys, just jumping in there to let you know about this really cool event that's only a couple weeks away. On February 7th, we will be hosting the Valentine's Day Massacre at Fountain Square Brewery. It's going to be presented by NUVO. We will start at 6 and we'll have raffles, vendors, tarot card readers, and then by 7, we will start Pumpkin Cup Horror Trivia. And by 9, we will have our entertainment for the evening, Johnny Crash. We will have plenty of raffles throughout the night and lots of shopping that you can do. So come on out, find something cool, get your spooky someone something special, get you a beer, and support some of our awesome local vendors like Devil Doll 666, Killer Bacon, Gorgeous Creations, the Herbal Artesian Skincare line that will be there. The Mystical Mavens will be there doing their tarot readings, birth chart readings, all that fun stuff. Sponsored by Cinema Scares, Skyline Drive-In, Terror in the Isles, Mr. Dabs, the Hubbard and Craven's Coffee and Tea, one of our awesome local artists, and also the host of your Pumpkin Cup Horror Trivia, as well as Sid Hughes Cult Reviews, and of course, Killer Bacon and Gorgeous Art Photography. We're really excited to see you guys. Again, the event starts at 6. We'll have trivia by 7 and the performance at 9. We also might have a little something special in the evening, so come get a beer. Check it out.
I'm okay. This is Amanda?
Yep, this is Amanda.
Okay, great. This is Joe Puerta. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
Waking up and trying to get my world going here. We had a nice little show the other night in Las Vegas, and
nice.
It was but we drove there, so it was a long drive back.
That's fair. Did you? Mm-hmm. Are you guys affected by the fires at all?
Not us. Not completely out of within the band. Our organist, one of the original members of the band, who's actually been staying home, recuperating from, he had a bout of cancer and he had to go through treatment, so he's still not up to touring yet. Oh. He lives in Pacific Palisades and he had to evacuate and he hasn't been back yet. So he thinks his house survived, his condo survived, but he's right now, amazingly enough, it would be a miracle if it did, but he thinks it did.
Oh, well, I hope.
And we do have where we are right now, we're experiencing high winds and we are under a fire alert. What they call it, they give you a warning that potential, you got to be ready. One of those kind of days. But we're okay right now.
Awesome. I know you have a show coming up at the Paramount Theater in just a couple days, right?
That's right, Thursday night. I mean, 6:30 door, 7:30 show.
Yeah.
I want to make sure people know that because it's a Thursday. They wanted to start a little bit earlier, I think.
That is actually really smart because I feel like that's a very common, like, I'm tired. I don't want to stay up till 11 or 12 on a weekday, mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. What can fans expect to catch at this show?
They're going to see a wide variety of what we do. I think the show is being billed as a yacht rock. It's called Rock the Dock, and we're going to have 2 special guests with us. So what we're going to be playing are probably some of the most iconic yacht rock songs that there are, with Peter Beckett from Player, who's probably got one of the top 2 or 3 of all time, with Baby Come Back. In that era, in that genre, I should say, of music, there's hardly anything that's more prominent than that song. It was #1 around the world. John Forcoli has another huge song called I Really Love to See You Tonight, so we're going to do those. We have, I think, 3 that are in the pretty high as far as getting play on the Yacht Rock station on Sirius. You're the Biggest Part of Me, How Much I Feel, You're the Only Woman. And that's just our contribution to the Yacht Rock hits, along with their other. John has like 5 that are played, tons on that Yacht Rock station. Peter has the other one that was a big hit for him, top 10, was This Time I'm In It for Love. So I don't know how familiar you are with all of those songs, but in that particular genre, that's what we're going to focus on. But we will throw in other songs that are snippets from our history. For example, we did for a movie that came out many years ago. We did a cover of the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, and it was on an album that was a tremendous album. The movie actually was a tremendous flop. I always kind of joke about it. It was a tremendous flop, and it was a great album with Elton John and Rod Stewart and the Bee Gees, Peter Gabriel, Leo Sayer, all doing Beatles songs for this movie. So it was a great soundtrack, just not a very good movie. And but we loved doing that song. We also, I was in another band that had quite a bit of success, Bruce Hornsby and the Range. And people don't realize that Bruce was actually, for a short minute here, he was in Ambrosia. We asked him to be our keyboard player because he could sing and play great keyboards. So he did our only big MTV video we did for our last single that we released. Bruce is playing keyboards with us. So oftentimes you'll see snippets on TV of different ads showing Ambrosia, and it's Bruce playing keyboards, which might be confusing to people, but that's the history of that. So we'll throw in The Way It Is. We throw The Way It Is in the show, which is another huge hit, #1 record for Bruce. And another song that we like to throw in there is for us, is a tribute to Gary Wright, who a lot of times in the past, we did a lot of these shows where we were the band, but basically the house band, and we had special guests. And Gary Wright, who had some great hits with The Dreamweaver, of course, and the other song that everybody knows is Love Is Alive. And sort of as a tribute to him, because the very last show Gary ever played was us backing him on stage. And it was kind of bittersweet because we could tell when he came out on stage how frail he was getting. But once the music started, he like kicked it on, and he had a great time, and he was working the stage and got the crowd going. And after the show, he said, "Man, we got to do this. Got to do more of these." But that was his last show. And so as a tribute to Gary and the time we spent with him, we do Love Is Alive in the show. So along with, all the hits, John has so many, besides Really Love to See You Tonight, he's, it's, I think it's a walk down memory lane for a lot of people, because it's going to be the people that grew up with us. It's a soundtrack to their lives, sort of. And then we're also getting kind of an infusion of a lot of younger people who are getting turned on to this phenomenon called yacht rock. Guys, that were into the Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins, and of course Christopher Cross, all the people that we grew up playing alongside with. That music is just, hitting a nerve for people. They really seem to like it. What I think is that they're having, because it's become kind of this, new genre that's been, kind of sourced out into its own element. People are having fun with it. They're doing the caps and the sunglasses and, the Ray-Bans, and here they are in the audience. So that's part of it, where I don't feel they're making fun of it, because I know they love the music. I think they're having fun with it. Just different kind of a philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of triggers, like, I'm 36, so I grew up always, every barbecue, every family party, you had the parents that party, they'd be playing cards, and the music was always playing, and so it's like the soundtrack to your childhood. So while it wasn't, we weren't there when it was new, but it was new to us because we grew up hearing it, just it was new. And I think also there's that like wide range of yacht rock. Do you feel like you've ever heard something classified as yacht rock that you didn't really feel like fit the category?
That's, what's interesting to me is they have a scale. I don't get into that argument. I let people have fun with it. I see these arguments. Oh, it's not yacht rock, or this is really yacht rock, and it's like, I don't know. All I know is we have 3 songs that are really yacht rock, and people that are into that. We get a lot of attention because of that, and so I just go, okay, take it for what it is. I don't know exactly if I understand 100% what makes it totally yacht rock or not, but I let the fans sort that one out.
For sure. Well, I think there's also something groovy that's happening with like the cover yacht rock bands because they're starting out playing covers, but then they're like finding their own way. And I know I've interviewed a couple saying like, well, now we've started playing our own music too, and we just kind of slide that in slowly and let it kind of just develop with the show. And I think that's kind of cool
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost
It'll
like you
be
guys
interesting to see what.
created the door for them to walk through.
I guess we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what do you feel like is some advice that you would give to somebody that wanted to grow up to be you or wanted to do what you do?
Oh, that's a question that's been lingering. I heard that since we started our career. What advice would you give to young musicians trying to make it in the music biz? And my
Hmm.
answer back then was, don't learn a backup trade. just keep at it.
Because you have to
Keep
want it
hacking
more than
away.
anything.
It's not easy. There's no easy road. It took us, several years after we all had been playing, growing up in high school bands and stuff like that. Once we got together post high school, we started our college education, but we were trying to make it in the music business. It took, several years of trying to find a sound, trying to find songs that made, that we thought would work for the world at large, and it finally happened. But it was a lot of different, just unique little occurrences in our career where we met certain people through odd kind of connections. Sometimes it's not always a straight line. In other words, you got to go through
Yes,
some zigzagging to get there.
for sure. Well, you mentioned stuff that didn't work sometimes. Is there a song that you've ever written that you really, really liked, that you really wanted to make a song, but you just didn't feel like it just didn't work? Or maybe it didn't work for you, but it would work for a different artist?
Oh yeah, there's been songs that we've done, of demos of, that we've never released, that I think are really some pretty cool songs, and just by when it came down to the final, what songs we're going to put on the album, we have so many songs we could put on, and that was it. So some really good songs actually got left off, and we were hoping to put out sort of an anthology, if you will, of all our songs, including some of the ones that were left off. We haven't gotten to that yet, but that's kind of on the agenda of things to do eventually.
Nice.
Because I think people will enjoy some of these other tunes.
Definitely. Well, I think
Mm-hmm.
your new fans that you're finding are always, thirsty for new stuff. And sometimes, even though the older fans don't want to admit that they like new stuff, they do usually come
Mm-hmm.
around to it. If you like
I
somebody
think.
enough, you should give their art a chance, no matter as it evolves. Like there were a lot of people that, like, for instance, abandoned Bob Dylan because, they didn't like his electric stuff, and it's just kind of silly
Oh.
because you know, now
Mm-hmm.
look at his electric stuff. It's like selling
uh,
albums again.
yeah,
um,
I mean, it was that was a huge paradigm shift for him, but he pulled it off. It took a while. Again, it took a while for people to kind of come around, but the songwriting is what it comes down to for so many people. It's just his songs, the stories
yeah,
they told, and the pictures, the lyrics. It was what I think really threw Bob into another category. The
sure.
storytelling. Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting point to make because something I just asked earlier um, when I was interviewing John Lodge from the Moody Blues, I said, someone once told me that they can only write the music and then the words come later. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
as a writer, to me, I can write, but the music has to come later because I don't make the music. So it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting though, because my friend said, well, you can tell in a song whether or not the music was written for the words or whether or not the words were written for the music. Do you feel like that's true?
Huh. It's an interesting point. I don't know exactly if that's true because, well, I'm going to throw this in there because one of our connections with Indiana, I think we're the only band that can ever say they co-wrote a song with Kurt Vonnegut Jr., who's from Indiana, of course.
Oh, awesome.
He had a book. I was reading a book called Cat's Cradle, if you're familiar with Kurt Vonnegut's writings. And in that book, it's based on a sort of an island, mythical island, and the prophet on this island is Bokonon, and they called Bokononisms. And he would write these like calypsos that were like the Psalms, if you will. And one of them was called Nice, Nice, Very Nice. And we were working on a song that we had all the lyrics for, or the beginning of the lyrics, but our producer thought we needed something different. And I was reading this book, and I said, guys, I think this might work. It goes, a sleeping drunkard up in Central Park, lion hunter in the jungle dark, Chinese dentist, or the British queen, they all fit together in the same machine. Nice, nice, very nice. So many people in the same device. It was written to be kind of, musical. And it just worked in this song that we had already worked out. And it just became, actually, it's the opening track to our first album. And Kurt Vonnegut, when we did it, we didn't actually have permission to use the song. And so after we had finished the album and it was all mixed and everything, we realized, oh my God, we forgot to get legal permission to use his lyrics. So we had to send it to him, and he loved it. And he wrote us a very nice letter later on, and it closed with this quote, which just said, there's one thing I've always known, music is the only art that's worth a damn. I envy you guys. And here we are. You can imagine being Kurt Vonnegut fans and getting a letter from Kurt Vonnegut saying that. It was blew our minds. And I actually had to write a second verse. So I thought, God, I actually got to write lyrics for Kurt Vonnegut Jr. And
that's
he had to
so
prove
cool. That's a great story.
So, well, for Indiana,
have you ever? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's one special. He's one of the most iconic Indiana Hoosiers of all time, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was something.
We had an author that came out to visit. I want to say it was last year from New York, and that was what she was most excited about, was to go see the Kurt Vonnegut mural and the museum and stuff. So it was pretty cool too.
Oh, yeah. You were going to ask, was it whether we met him, or I don't know what you're going to ask exactly.
Oh, what I was going to say was, have you ever, you mentioned him, and that's some pretty cool, little tidbit of a advice or a quote. Is there any other person that you ever, had a lot of respect for, or that, you were already a fan of, that you've run into in your career that's given you some good advice?
Probably the most amazing person that we got to meet as a musician that we were fans of because we grew up seeing the movie and West Side Story was Leonard Bernstein. And we were huge fans of that movie and the music he wrote for it.
That's
and
really
through a series of connections, and it's kind of complicated to go into how we all got to end up meeting a lot of people in the classical world. Before we even were famous, we got to meet through an engineer. We were testing a system for a friend of ours at the Hollywood Bowl, meaning there was nobody there. A friend of mine who I used to be in a band with had gone to work for this big sound company, and he called me and said, "Do you want to play the Hollywood Bowl?" And I said, "Gosh, of course." "What's the deal?" He goes, "Well, you're just going to set up on a Sunday afternoon. No one will be there, and they're going to listen to the sound system while you guys play. They're really not there to hear you. They just want to hear the system." But they needed somebody to, play some music while they tested it.
right.
So we did that, and at the end of our little audition or little sound check thing, the guy came up to us who was a sound consultant that year for the Bowl. His name was Gordon Perry, and he's the chief recording engineer for London Decca, and he was a classical recording engineer. And he had 5 Grammy Awards for some of the best recordings of all time. And he's quite well known in the classical world. And he became kind of our mentor. He loved what we were doing musically. thought we all had been classically trained, and I hardly knew anything about technical part of music. I was just ear taught myself. So we started going to the Hollywood Bowl, and little by little, he'd introduce us to Lucas Foss and Zubin Mehta, and we got to meet all these great conductors, and they all thought we were already well known. We were playing like YMCA's and bars, but he would try to pitch us. This is an amazing band. You're almost here. So eventually, we actually did get hired to play with the LA Symphony at a special concert, and that led to a producer hearing us for A&M, Steve Goldman.
Nice.
He brought us into A&M Records to make some demos. They didn't sign us, but that demo ended up getting in the hands of another person who had worked at the Hollywood Bowl, who was building a recording studio, and they kept playing our demo tapes to test the studio speakers he was putting together. And another guy who owned the studio and was part of the record business more, he said, "Who are these guys? I kept hearing these songs. They're friends of mine. They're called Ambrosia." We met with him. He ended up said, "I think I can get you guys a deal." He got us our first deal, and that was it. That we finally got our first shot at recording for a record company.
It's amazing.
That was 20th Century Records, by the way.
That's super cool. It's almost it. They used to always say it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that used to be a thing. I feel like it really did. You got that connection from just knowing somebody. But I also think it's cool now that musicians kind of have the opportunity to do that without having to find their in. If they're good and they can work hard enough at it with the way that stuff is set up now, I think that maybe the future of music looks different. What do you see for the future of music?
Well, it's definitely different. I mean, there's nothing, like the old record company, the way things occurred in the old days. There's nothing like that anymore. There was a lot more money that came from the record companies themselves initially in a lot of early bands' careers. They would put up the money for your recording, they put up the money for your touring. Now a lot of the bands, they're all self-financed. They make their own recordings, which they can do now. A lot of it they can do themselves, right? Because of technology changes. And the touring, they're out doing it any which way they can. And, I know they're sleeping on couches that people offer for free because they don't have the money for hotels. And I've worked with bands. I had a recording studio for many years, and I worked with several bands and produced some bands that were young bands and great music. But I saw, I went out with one time with one of the bands to see how it was, and that's what they were doing. They didn't have money for hotels, and they had couch surfing. And I was like, God, I can't do this. Give me a hotel. But it was interesting to see, and they play these little venues and garner, a few people at a time. Every city. And it was just a question. I thought, well, if they can keep doing this long enough, because they were so good live. By the way, the band was called King Washington, and they were a really great band. You could try to find some of their songs online still.
I'm writing it down now.
Yeah, King Washington, and they were a great band, and it just finally ran out because the money ran out, and they just kind of had to make a living, and it was like, how long can you just keep doing this? And without somebody like their old record companies that would give you tour support, it was just got to be a question of finances after a while,
Yeah, that's
Life
a great
is not
point.
inexpensive,
Yeah. I think that's a great point because I was a photographer. I have been pretty consistently, but not so much since I got busy. I had a band that that's where I got started, was just being a music photographer. And this band of my buds, they're called Wet Denim, and they've been touring up and down most of this on the East Coast of America, but they've had to do that, when we would go on the tour, and they would be staying at this other musician that came in town last year that stayed at their house. They gave them a place to stay, and So I think that you do see a lot of that, like, you know, and you just don't really know, even sometimes the day you're leaving on tour, you don't know where you're going to stay. Like, oh, well, we're not really sure where the New York date sleeping arrangements are going to be, you know, but that's a great point.
No, it's dedication at that point. You know, you're not going to make money coming off the bat. I think that's why some people kind of resent the shows that are like this, you know, The Voice and all that, because they get this platform, huge platform, and they're nobody. But then they go from this being nobody to overnight millions of people see them. And wait, you didn't even play any live shows or anything. Suddenly you're a superstar. Like,
Sure.
Did you pay your dues? And not saying there are not some great singers out there, but it's kind of like, you know, that what was their larger background in creating I think the stuff that makes a band have more depth. I was reading the biography of Keith Richards, you know, and he was talking about how, you know, they didn't have the money. If a string broke, they tried to figure out a way to tie it together because they didn't have any money, you know, to buy a set of strings. I mean, you know, like,
yeah, that's crazy.
You know,
that
they
would be
paid their
awful
dues.
too.
Yeah.
Be on tour and your string broken, you don't have a replacement.
I don't know how they did it, but that, you know, he claims that they were that poor, you know, and I believe it, you know, because when you start off, especially if you're trying to play original music,
Yeah,
really, you know, it's pretty tough, you know, to garner a crowd, like you said, the band that you worked with. I don't know,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And there's
I
been
mean,
a few
even
bands.
go ahead.
Was there a band from Indiana called Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos?
Yes, there was.
I thought they were such a great band. I bought their album. I saw them playing in Milwaukee at the Summerfest, and I was just really impressed with them. And I bought their album, and I thought, well, this is going to really go somewhere. And nothing. It kind of dissipated, right? Just died out.
Yeah. When we we did a bingo game at our Christmas party, and we did like a local band bingo game. So I was, you know, trying to list every band from Indiana that I could think of, you know, since forever. And I was like, oh, I haven't thought of them in a while, and I really like them. So I had gone back and listened to them again, and then I realized like they haven't put anything out since. Well, I guess they did put out like some demo recordings and like a rarities album. But other than that, like new stuff was mostly like 2008 or something, I think. But then
Yeah, it's been a long time. But I remember when they came out, and I just thought, wow, this is such a cool indie record. I liked the guy's voice a lot. I thought he was a really cool singer, and I just thought, you know, what happened? And
well,
just
I'm
didn't
looking on
catch
Spotify,
on.
and it looks like they might have some new stuff on there now. So maybe we're both just behind the times, and we got to go check it out.
Maybe you do. I guess I didn't know if they had broken up or reunited, you know. But again, that shows you it would have been hard over the last, what you said, 2008, 17 years to keep a band going without reaching some sort of success where everybody could make a living, you know.
Yeah.
After 17 years, you might go, this
right.
is maybe not going to work out for us. That's the hardest part, I think, is unless you have a rich daddy or something, you know, like, you know, something, you know,
sure.
that helps.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the other thing that I had written down was something cool that I had read about was you had a pretty interesting marriage that you had on a cruise.
Oh, yeah, it was kind of almost started as, I won't say it was a joke, but when my wife, Shannon, and I decided we wanted to get married, we were doing a lot of these shows with other artists, and one of the artists was Stephen Bishop, and his big hit, of course, On and Save It for a Rainy Day, and Separate Lives he wrote. And but he became a good friend, and he goes, oh, I want to play at their wedding. And it was like, oh, that's nice. That's cool. And then, you know, Peter Beckett from Players said, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. And next thing you know, John Paul Coley's a good friend. So we started thinking, well, heck, our drummer said, why don't we make it a concert? And so that's what happened. We were doing, it was called the Rock and Romance Cruise anyway. It was Time Life. We do these cruises where they have all these different bands on the cruise. So that's what we did. We had like a concert wedding. So we had like 1,000 people out front that were part of our wedding, and we played songs, and we had the vows and the whole thing. And I wrote a special song for Shannon, my wife.
That's
called
awesome.
Shannon Marie, because there's already a Shannon song. So I said, I got to do something different. I had her middle name. Shannon Marie is the song I wrote for her, and played that. And anyway, she sang a song too. She was very brave. First time she ever sang on a mic, I think. And she sang a song for me. So it was very sweet. I think people got a kick out of it. Plus, it was a lot of great music with Peter and Stephen and John and Ambrosia all playing songs.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's a great story. And then you guys, did you meet because of music as well? Did I read that right?
Yeah, she was a huge fan, and she kept coming to shows, and she just, eventually got to be friends, and then, one thing led to another. It just sort of, well, again, long story, took several years where things kind of ended up where they ended up, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, but she was a huge music fan.
That's really cool. Well, I know you've been having to fight the winds and dealing with all of that, so I don't want to keep you on much longer. I do really appreciate you talking to me and letting us, get some cool information and neat little tidbits about your career and you and your wife and all the cool people you've met.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad to. Looking forward to coming out there. I'm hoping. As far as weather out there, it's going to be about face, isn't it? It's going to be pretty cold, right?
Yeah, it's like it was negative in the middle of the night. I want to say, I know I could be wrong, but I think the current temperature is like 2, 6, something like that.
Oh wow! Oh no!
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Very cold.
I stayed inside all day.
Yikes!
See.
Okay, I hope it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 11 because that makes such a big difference.
Well, every degree can kind of help, but once it's below 20, I lived in Wisconsin for many years, and so my wife lived in Illinois, so we're used to cold weather, but we've been out of it now for quite a few years. We moved back to California, and so right now, as you probably know, it's been like a heat wave out here, you could call it. There's no rain, it's nice and beautiful sunny days, but we're all hoping for rain because of risk of fire. But that's kind of where we are. We're like hoping for some cold, not just cold weather, but wet weather, snow, rain, something.
Right. Well, you lucky for you, it's going to be a little bit warmer when you come. It looks like Thursday it's supposed to be around 29. So
yeah, that's getting like survivable.
Yeah.
For more than
11
10 minutes outside, right?
I'm not going outside today.
I understand. Yeah. Don't. Yeah. Too risky. Yeah, I know. It doesn't take long at that temperature to frostbite or something. Yeah.
Yeah, your skin burns as soon as you come back in if you had any exposed skin when you went outside.
I know. We're gonna have to rethink our packing right now. We were just in Las Vegas, but Las Vegas is cold at night, even though it's so hot in the summer. During the winter, it gets cold at night, and it's but of course we were indoors. Don't go out. Okay. Well, looking forward to. I don't know if we'll meet you or not, but great talking to you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too, and I will try to get out to the show. I'm a mom, so sometimes weekday nights work out and sometimes they don't, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to make it.
Thank you.
All right, you have a great day.
You too. Okay. Don't freeze.
Oh,
okay.
thanks.
Bye. Bye.